The champagne glass shattered against Maya's cheek before she even registered the movement. Crystal fragments scattered across the marble floor of Celestial, the most exclusive restaurant in the city, where reservations required 6 months' notice and a credit card that didn't flinch at 4-digit bills. Maya stumbled backward, her hand flying to her face as warm liquid, champagne mixed with blood, dripped down her jaw. "You incompetent little nobody," the woman in the white Chanel suit hissed, rising from her chair like a viper. "I specifically said Pellegrino, not Perrier, not San Pellegrino. Pellegrino Naturale. Do you have any idea how much this meal costs? Do you have any concept of who I am?" Maya's vision blurred with tears she refused to let fall. Her manager, Vincent, was already rushing over, his face a mask of apologetic panic. Around them, the quiet murmur of the restaurant had died completely. 50 pairs of eyes watched her humiliation like it was dinner theater. "Mrs. Castellano, I sincerely apologize," Vincent began, but the woman cut him off with a slash of her manicured hand. "I don't want your apologies. I want this worthless girl fired, immediately, and I want—" "You want what?" The voice came from the corner booth, table 7, where the man in the black suit had been sitting alone for the past hour. Maya had served him twice, once for his drink order, once to inform him the kitchen was running behind on his entree. Both times he'd barely looked up from his phone, just nodded, and said thank you in a voice so quiet she'd almost missed it. He wasn't quiet now. Every head in the restaurant turned toward him as he stood, and Maya felt the atmosphere shift like air pressure dropping before a storm. He was tall, she noticed properly for the first time, with dark hair swept back from a face that looked like it had been carved from stone, and then broken a few times for character. But it was his eyes that made her breath catch, dark and bottomless, and currently fixed on Mrs. Castellano, with an intensity that made the woman take an involuntary step backward. "I asked what you want," he repeated, moving toward them with the fluid grace of a predator. His footsteps were the only sound in the entire restaurant. "Because it seems to me you've already gotten quite a bit. You've assaulted an employee. You've disrupted everyone's evening. You've demonstrated conclusively that money can't buy class." Mrs. Castellano's face flushed red. "How dare you? Do you know who I am? My husband." "Dominic Castellano, real estate developer, 3 counts of fraud currently under investigation, reputation held together with bribes and NDAs. The man's voice was conversational, almost friendly, which somehow made it more terrifying. "I know exactly who you are, Mrs. Castellano. The question is, do you know who I am?" The color drained from the woman's face. "I thought so," he said softly. Then, without breaking eye contact with Mrs. Castellano, he addressed the room. "Nobody leaves." Vincent made a strangled sound. "Sir, I don't think—" "Vincent!" The man finally looked away from Mrs. Castellano, and Maya watched her manager physically flinch. "Lock the door." I can't just—" "Lock the door." Vincent's hand shook as he pulled out his keys and walked to the entrance. The sound of the deadbolt sliding home echoed through the silence like a gunshot. The man turned back to Mrs. Castellano, who was clutching her purse like a shield. "Here! What's going to happen? You're going to apologize to Maya. A real apology. The kind that comes from realizing you've behaved like a monster to someone who didn't deserve it. And nobody, not you, not anyone in this room, is leaving until I believe you mean it." "This is insane," Mrs. Castellano sputtered. "You can't hold us hostage. I'll call the police." "Please do." He pulled out his own phone and held it out to her. "Tell them Elijah Cross is detaining you for assault. See how quickly they rush to your rescue." Maya's knees almost buckled. Elijah Cross. Everyone in the city knew that name, even if most people had never seen his face. He was a ghost story that happened to be real, the man who controlled half the underground economy, who could make businesses thrive or collapse with a word, whose reputation was built on ruthless efficiency and a complete lack of mercy for those who crossed him. And he was defending her. "I'm sorry," Mrs. Castellano's voice cracked. "I'm sorry, all right, can we please just—" "Not to me." Elijah's voice cut through her words like a blade. "To her. And I suggest you make it convincing, because I have nowhere to be tonight and patience isn't really my virtue. Maya stood frozen as Mrs. Castellano turned to face her. The woman's hands were trembling now, her earlier fury replaced by something that looked like genuine fear. I'm sorry, Mrs. Castellano said, and this time there was something real in her voice. I was wrong. I shouldn't have. You didn't deserve that, any of it. Keep going, Elijah said quietly. I was having a terrible day, and I took it out on you, and that was cruel and unfair, and Mrs. Castellano's voice broke completely. I'm so sorry. Maya found her own voice at last. It's okay, she whispered, though it wasn't, not really, but she just wanted this to be over. It's not okay, Elijah said, still watching Mrs. Castellano, but it's a start. He looked around the room, making eye contact with each frozen diner. Let me make something very clear to everyone here. Maya is under my protection now. That means if anyone in the city, anyone at all, treats her with anything less than respect, they answer to me. Do we understand each other? Heads nodded frantically around the room. Good. Elijah finally looked at Maya, and his expression softened in a way that made her heart stutter. Vincent, unlock the door. Everyone can go, except you, he added to Mrs. Castellano. You can leave after you've paid for every meal in this restaurant tonight. Consider it a generosity tax. As the restaurant slowly came back to life, diners gathering their things in stunned silence, Vincent fumbling with the lock, Elijah walked back to his table. But before sitting down, he paused and spoke to Maya in a voice meant only for her. End of your shift, I'll be waiting outside. We need to talk. Then he sat, picked up his wine glass, and went back to his phone as if he hadn't just upended reality. 3 hours later, Maya pushed through Celestial's back door into the alley, her hands still shaking from the adrenaline that hadn't worn off. She spent the rest of her shift in a daze, mechanically taking orders and delivering food while her mind spun in circles trying to process what had happened. Elijah Cross was leaning against a black car that probably cost more than she'd earn in 5 years, still in his dark suit, checking his phone. He looked up as she approached, and Maya was struck again by the contradiction of him, someone so dangerous looking so calm. You came, he said, pocketing his phone. You said we needed to talk. Maya hugged her jacket tighter around herself, hyper-aware of how she must look, exhausted, rumpled, with a bandage on her cheek where the glass had cut her. I'm not really in a position to say no to you. Something flickered across his face, disappointment, maybe, or regret. You can always say no to me, Maya. That's not why I asked you to come. Then why? He was quiet for a long moment, studying her with those unsettling dark eyes. Finally, he said, How's your grandmother? Maya felt the ground tilt beneath her feet. What? Rose Chen, 73 years old, currently at Mercy General's extended care facility. Advanced Alzheimer's. You visit her every Sunday after your morning shift at the bakery and before your afternoon shift at the coffee shop on 5th. You read to her even though she usually doesn't remember who you are. How is she? The blood drained from Maya's face. Have you been watching me? For 8 months, Elijah said, with no trace of shame. Every day, every shift, every visit to the hospital. Maya's hands balled into fists. The fear she'd been holding back all night crystallized into fury. You're insane. You're actually insane. I'm calling the police. Your grandmother saved my life. The words stopped her mid-turn. Elijah pushed off from the car, but didn't move toward her, like he was trying not to spook a frightened animal. 6 years ago, I was 24, stupid, thought I was invincible because I'd won a few fights and earned some respect. Walked into the wrong territory, said the wrong thing to the wrong people. They shot me twice and left me bleeding out in an alley 3 blocks from here. He paused, his jaw working like the memory still hurt. Your grandmother found me. I don't know what she was doing out at 2 in the morning. Maybe she couldn't sleep. Maybe she was confused and wandering. But she found me, and instead of being scared or calling the police, she just sat down next to me. She pressed her scarf against the wounds to slow the bleeding. She held my hand and told me stories about her late husband, about you, about how the world was full of people worth living for. She stayed with me until the ambulance came. Maya's anger wavered, replaced by a memory she'd tried to forget. Her grandmother going missing for 4 hours one night, found by police sitting on a bench downtown in her nightgown, confused and disoriented. The incident that had finally convinced Maya they couldn't manage at home anymore. She probably didn't even know what she was doing, Maya whispered. Maybe not, but she did it anyway. That's who she is, someone who sees a stranger dying and offers comfort. No judgment, no questions, just kindness. Elijah's voice roughened. I'd spent my whole life learning to be hard, to show no weakness, to trust no one. And this tiny old woman with dementia taught me more about humanity in 20 minutes than I'd learned in 24 years. So you've been, what, stalking me out of gratitude? Protecting you, he corrected. Your grandmother can't take care of herself anymore. You're killing yourself working 3 jobs to pay for her care. I wanted to make sure you were safe. By watching me without my knowledge. That's not protection, that's interference, Elijah finished. Control. I know. I'm not good at this. I'm not good at caring about people. But I do care, Maya. I have since the night I watched you visit her for the first time after she'd been diagnosed. You read her the same book she'd read to you as a child, and when she didn't recognize you, you just smiled and introduced yourself as a friendly volunteer. You didn't break down until you got to your car. Tears burned Maya's eyes. You had no right. You're right, I don't, but I'm not going to apologize for it. He took a careful step closer. Your grandmother gave me back my life. Let me give you back yours. Let me help. I don't need your help. Mercy General's extended care facility costs $4,000 a month. You're 3 months behind on payments. They're going to transfer her to state care in 2 weeks unless you can catch up. Elijah pulled an envelope from his jacket and held it out. This is $15,000. It covers what you owe plus 3 more months. It's not a loan. It's not a transaction. It's just what I owe her, what I owe you. Maya stared at the envelope like it was a snake. I can't take that. Why not? Because money from someone like you comes with strings attached. You don't just give away $15,000 because you feel grateful. Someone like me, Elijah repeated, and for the first time she heard something painful in his voice. You're right, someone like me doesn't do charity. Someone like me sees the world as transactions and leverage and debts to be collected. But your grandmother saw something else in me that night. She saw someone worth saving. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe I'm exactly what you think I am, a criminal, a monster, someone who solves problems with fear and money. He set the envelope on the hood of his car. But maybe, just for once, I can be something better. Take the money or don't. It's yours either way. But know this, Maya, what I said in that restaurant wasn't a performance. You're under my protection whether you want it or not. Not because I own you, not because you owe me, but because your grandmother taught me that everyone deserves someone standing between them and the world's cruelty. He moved toward the driver's side door, then paused. The cut on your face, make sure you keep it clean. And Maya, you don't have to work 3 jobs anymore. I bought Celestial 2 hours ago. Starting tomorrow, you're the day manager. Same hours, 4 times the pay, and Vincent answers to you now. You can't just. I already did. Fight me about it if you want, but you'll lose, and your pride isn't worth your grandmother's care. He opened the car door, then looked back one last time. I'll never hurt you, Maya. I'll never control you, but I will protect you. Get used to it. Then he was gone, the car pulling away smoothly into the night, leaving Maya alone in the alley with an envelope full of money and a choice that felt like no choice at all. She stood there for a long time, shaking, furious, terrified, and something else she didn't want to name. Finally, she picked up the envelope. Inside was exactly what he'd promised, $15,000 in crisp hundreds and a business card with a single phone number. On the back, in elegant handwriting, were 4 words. Thank you, Rose Chen. Maya closed her eyes and cried. If you're invested in Maya's journey and want to see where this impossible situation leads, hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment telling me what you'd do in her position, take the money or walk away. And smash that like button if you're ready for the next twist in this story, because things are about to get much more complicated. 4 months later, Maya stood in her grandmother's new private room at Brookside Memory Care. the facility she'd only dreamed about affording, with its gardens and art therapy and staff who actually remembered residents' names. Her grandmother was asleep in the afternoon sunlight, peaceful in a way she hadn't been in years. Maya's life had transformed so completely it felt like someone else. She managed Celestial now, earned enough to breathe, even started taking online business courses. She hadn't seen Elijah since that night in the alley, though she felt his presence constantly, in the flowers delivered to the restaurant every Monday, in the mysterious resolution of a problem with her landlord, in the way certain customers treated her with unusual respect. She'd called his number once, 3 weeks after taking the money, just to say thank you. The call went straight to voicemail. She hung up without leaving a message. Now her phone buzzed with an unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. Maya Chen. The voice was unfamiliar male, with an accent she couldn't place. You need to listen very carefully. We have something of yours, someone rather. Her blood turned to ice. What are you talking about? Rose Chen. We picked her up an hour ago from Brookside. Very easy, just walked in as family, signed her out for a day trip. Nobody questioned it. No, the word came out as a whisper. No, you're lying. She's asking for someone named Tommy. Her husband, I think. It's quite sad, really. She has no idea where she is or what's happening. The voice hardened. But she's safe. For now, whether she stays that way depends entirely on you. Maya's free hand clutched the window frame to keep herself upright. What do you want? Not what. Who? You, Maya, in exchange for Rose's safe return. You have 2 hours to come to the address I'm about to text you. Come alone. Tell anyone, especially Elijah Cross, and we'll know. And Rose's final moments will be very, very unpleasant. Why are you doing this? Because Elijah Cross took something from us. Now we're taking something from him. The line went dead. Maya's phone buzzed again immediately, an address in the warehouse district. Her hands shook so badly she almost dropped it. This was her fault. Accepting Elijah's protection had painted a target on her back, and now her grandmother was paying the price. She had 2 choices. Go alone and probably die, or call Elijah and risk her grandmother's life. Her finger hovered over his number for 3 agonizing seconds. Then she pressed call. He answered on the first ring. Maya. They took her. The words tumbled out in a rush. They have my grandmother. They want me to trade myself for her. I have 2 hours. They said not to tell you, but I can't. I can't let her die because of me. Breathe. His voice was absolutely calm, which somehow made her panic worse. Where are you right now? Brookside. I'm at Brookside. Stay there, don't move. I'm 12 minutes away. There was a pause, and when he spoke again, his voice was different, colder, harder, the voice of someone who'd made terrible decisions and would make them again. Maya, listen to me very carefully. They're not going to hurt Rose. She's only valuable as leverage. This isn't about her. It's about making me watch you choose between yourself and someone you love. They want me to fail to protect you. So what do? We don't do anything. You stay exactly where you are. I handle this. No. The word came out stronger than she felt. She's my grandmother. I'm not hiding while someone else risks their life for her. Maya. I'm coming with you. That's not negotiable. The silence stretched long enough that she thought he'd hung up. Finally, 11 minutes now. We'll discuss it when I get there. The line went dead. Maya looked down at her grandmother, sleeping peacefully, unaware that she'd been kidnapped and returned in the space of her afternoon nap. Because that's what happened, she realized suddenly. The kidnappers had taken her grandmother, called to make the threat, and probably brought her right back to avoid the complication of actually holding a confused elderly woman hostage. It was all theater, all manipulation, and she'd almost walked right into it. Fury crystallized in her chest, sharp and clean and clarifying. These people had used her grandmother, had terrified her, used her as a weapon, because of a war Maya didn't understand and hadn't chosen. When Elijah arrived, he was going to tell her to stay safe, to let him handle it, to trust that he'd protect her. And for once in her life, Maya Chen was going to fight back. The warehouse loomed against the night sky like a broken tooth. Elijah had tried for 20 minutes to convince Maya to stay in the car, parked 3 blocks away with Tobias, his head of security. She refused with a stubbornness that would have been admirable if it wasn't so terrifying. "You understand they want to kill you," Elijah said, checking his gun one final time. "That this entire setup exists to hurt me by hurting you. Walking in there is exactly what they want." "I understand that my grandmother was used as bait because you decided I needed protection," Maya shot back. "I understand that hiding won't make me safe. It'll just make me a target who can't see what's coming. And I understand that you're about to walk into a building full of people who want you dead, and I'd rather be there than spend the rest of my life wondering if I could have helped." Elijah studied her in the dim light, this small, stubborn, impossibly brave woman who'd somehow become the center of his carefully controlled world. "You're insane," he said finally. "I learned from the best." She held out her hand. "Do you have a spare weapon?" "Absolutely not." "Then I'm going in unarmed. Your choice." He wanted to lock her in the car. He wanted to send her away with Tobias to somewhere safe. He wanted to turn back time 8 months and never walk into that alley, never see her for the first time carrying 2 trays of impossibly expensive food to people who didn't deserve it, never make the catastrophic mistake of caring. Instead, he handed her a knife. "Stay behind me. Do exactly what I say. And if I tell you to run, you run. Promise me." "I promise," Maya lied. They moved toward the warehouse together. The interior was vast and empty, their footsteps echoing on concrete. Too empty, too quiet. Every instinct Elijah had was screaming trap, but they were already inside, already committed. "I was starting to think you wouldn't come." The voice boomed from speakers hidden somewhere in the darkness. "Elijah Cross, the man who controls this city, brought to heel by one scared waitress. It's almost poetic." Light slammed on, blinding. When Elijah's vision cleared, he saw them, 8 men arranged in a semicircle, all armed. And in the center, sitting calmly in a chair like this was a business meeting, was Marcus Volkov. Of course it was Marcus. The Russian had been probing Elijah's territory for months, testing boundaries, looking for weakness. And Elijah had given him one the moment he decided Maya mattered. "Let her go," Elijah said quietly. "This is between us." "But that's where you're wrong." Marcus stood, spreading his hands. "This has always been about her. The moment you declared her under your protection, you made her part of our world. You painted a target on her back and called it love." "I called it debt," Elijah corrected. "Her grandmother saved my life." "Ah yes, the sentimental origin story. How touching." Marcus pulled out a gun, casual, like he was pulling out a phone. "Here's my counteroffer. You put down your weapon, kneel, and beg for her life. You do that, you humiliate yourself in front of your men, in front of her, on camera for all the city to see, and maybe I let you both walk out of here." "No," Maya said. Every head turned toward her. She stepped forward, past Elijah's protective arm, and faced Marcus with her chin up and her voice steady. "You want to know why Elijah protects me? It's not because I'm weak. It's not because I need saving. It's because your entire world is built on fear, and people like my grandmother, people who show kindness without expecting anything back, are the only thing that proves you're not inevitable." Marcus laughed. Brave words for someone surrounded by men with guns. "You think I'm scared?" Maya's voice didn't waver. "I've been scared every day of my life. Scared I couldn't pay rent. Scared my grandmother would die alone and confused. Scared I'd end up trapped in a system designed to crush people like me. Your guns don't make you special, Marcus. They just make you predictable." "Maya," Elijah said quietly, warningly. She ignored him. "You want Elijah to kneel, to beg. He won't, not because of pride, because he knows the moment he shows weakness, you'll kill us both anyway. That's who you are. That's all you are." Something shifted in Marcus's expression. "You know what? You're right. I was planning to kill you both regardless." He raised the gun, pointing it directly at Maya's chest. "But I appreciate the honesty." Elijah moved faster than thought, putting himself between Marcus and Maya, his own weapon up. "Marcus, don't." "Or what? You'll kill me. There are 8 of us and 2 of you. The math isn't complicated." "The math," said a new voice from the shadows, "just changed." Tobias stepped into the light, flanked by 15 of Elijah's men, all armed. They'd entered silently through side doors, surrounding Marcus's people in a mirror of the trap that had been set. "You didn't think I'd come alone," Elijah said softly. "Not when you were stupid enough to threaten what's mine." The standoff crystallized, weapons drawn on all sides, everyone one trigger pull away from chaos. And in the center of it all, Maya stood with a knife she barely knew how to use and a fury that wouldn't let her back down. "Lower your weapon," Elijah said to Marcus. "Walk away. Count yourself lucky I'm feeling generous." "Generous?" Marcus's laugh was brittle. "You think this ends here? You think protecting her makes her safe? Every enemy you have will see her as your weakness now. You've sentenced her to a life of looking over her shoulder, of being a target, of—" "I know," Elijah interrupted. "I've known since the day I locked that restaurant door. That's why I'm giving you a choice, Marcus. Walk away and maybe you live to rebuild. Or stay, and I make sure everyone knows you're the man who was too stupid to take an out when it was offered." For a long moment, nothing moved. Then Marcus lowered his gun. "This isn't over," he said. "It is for tonight." Elijah didn't lower his own weapon until Marcus and his men had filed out, leaving the warehouse empty except for his own people and Maya, still standing beside him like she belonged there. When the last echo of footsteps faded, Elijah finally let himself breathe. "You promised you. Run if I told you to." "I lied." Maya was shaking now, the adrenaline finally catching up to her. "I couldn't just if he'd shot you." "He didn't." Elijah holstered his gun and very carefully pulled Maya into his arms. She collapsed against him, and he felt the tremors running through her small frame. "You're safe. Your grandmother's safe. We're all safe." "For now," Maya whispered into his chest. "Marcus was right. I'll always be a target now." "Yes," Elijah agreed, because lying would be worse. "But you'll also always be protected. By me, by Tobias, by every person who works for me and knows that keeping you safe is their highest priority." Maya pulled back to look up at him, and in her eyes he saw something that made his heart stutter, not fear, but fierce determination. "I don't want to be someone who just gets protected. If I'm going to be part of your world, I want to understand it. I want to be strong enough to stand beside you, not just behind you." "Maya." "Teach me," she said. "Teach me how to survive in your world, how to see threats coming, how to be someone they have to respect, not just fear because of who stands next to me." Elijah studied her, this woman who'd gone from serving water to facing down armed criminals in 4 months, who looked at everything he was and decided to stay anyway. "You're sure? This life, it changes you, hardens you, takes pieces of who you were and doesn't give them back." "I'm already changing," Maya said simply. "At least this way I choose how." He should have said no. Should have found a way to keep her separate from the violence and moral compromise that defined his existence. Should have protected her from himself, most of all. Instead, he took her hand. "Okay, but we start tomorrow. Tonight, let's get you home." "Home," Maya repeated, and something in her voice made it sound like a question. Elijah understood what she was really asking. "My penthouse. You and your grandmother both. At least until we know Marcus isn't going to make another move." "That's not necessary." "It's necessary for me," Elijah interrupted. "Please, Maya, let me know you're safe. Let me—" He stopped, searching for words that didn't exist in his vocabulary. "Let me keep the promise I made to your grandmother, that everyone deserves someone standing between them and the world's cruelty." Maya was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Okay, but just until it's safe." They both knew it would never be truly safe. Not anymore. But Elijah didn't say that as he led her out of the warehouse and into the car where Tobias was waiting. He didn't say it during the drive to Brookside, where they collected a confused but unharmed Rose Chen. He didn't say it when they arrived at his penthouse, and Maya saw her grandmother settled into a bedroom nicer than any place she'd ever lived. He just watched Maya moving through his space, making tea in his kitchen, adjusting curtains in the guest room, looking out at the city lights with an expression he couldn't read, and realized with terrifying clarity that Marcus had been wrong about one thing. Maya wasn't his weakness. She was his reason for staying ruthless. 6 months later, Maya sat across from Elijah at the same table in Celestial, where he'd first intervened in her life. The restaurant was closed for a private dinner, just the two of them, in the space where everything had begun. "I have a proposition," Elijah said, setting down his wine glass. Maya raised an eyebrow. "Those words from you are usually terrifying." "This one might be too." He pulled a small box from his jacket and set it on the table between them. "Marry me." Maya stared at the box, her heart hammering. Is this because of the attack last week? There had been another attempt, a car bomb that Tobias had caught before it detonated, traced back to what was left of Marcus's organization. Maya had handled it with the same grim competence she'd developed over the past 6 months of learning to navigate Elijah's world. "It's because I love you," Elijah said simply. "It's because watching you grow from someone I protected into someone who protects herself and others has been the most extraordinary experience of my life. It's because your grandmother asks about our wedding every time we visit, and I'm tired of telling her soon. My grandmother has Alzheimer's. She asks about a lot of things that aren't real." "This could be real." Elijah opened the box, revealing a ring that was beautiful and understated and perfect. "I can't promise you safety. I can't promise you a normal life, but I can promise you partnership, respect, everything I have and everything I am. Say yes, Maya." She looked at the ring, then at him, this impossible, dangerous, devoted man who'd upended her entire existence because an old woman had shown him kindness. "People are going to say I'm only marrying you for protection, for money, that I don't have a choice." "People say a lot of things. What do you say?" Maya reached across the table and took the ring from the box. It fit perfectly on her finger, because of course Elijah would have somehow figured out her size without asking. "I say yes," she told him. "Not because I need protection, not because I'm afraid of what happens if I say no, but because somehow, in the middle of all this chaos and violence and impossibility, I fell in love with you too." Elijah's smile was rare and genuine and absolutely beautiful. "Even though I bought your workplace and stalked you for 8 months. Especially because of that," Maya said. "Most men just send flowers." He laughed, actually laughed, and Maya realized she'd never heard that sound from him before. It made him look younger, less haunted, like the boy he must have been before the world taught him to be hard. "So what now?" she asked. "Now we finish dinner. Then we go home and tell your grandmother she can start planning the wedding she won't remember tomorrow. Then we keep building this impossible life together, one dangerous day at a time." "That's very romantic," Maya said dryly. "I'm a crime lord, not a poet." But Elijah was still smiling, and Maya thought maybe that was enough. Maybe love didn't need to be pretty or safe or conventional. Maybe it just needed to be true. She looked down at the ring on her finger, catching the light like a promise, and thought about the old woman who'd saved a dying stranger in an alley 6 years ago. Rose Chen might not remember most days anymore, but she'd changed 2 lives forever with one act of uncalculated kindness. "Thank you," Maya said softly. "For what?" "For seeing something in me worth protecting. For teaching me I could be strong enough to protect myself. For loving my grandmother as much as I do." "Maya," Elijah reached across the table to take her hand. "Thank you for giving me something worth being better for, worth fighting for, worth changing for." "You haven't changed that much. You still solve most problems with intimidation and money." "True, but now I solve them for someone I love." He lifted her hand to his lips. "That's different." It was different, Maya thought. It was everything. Outside, the city hummed with its usual chaos. Crime and beauty and ordinary people living ordinary lives. Unaware that in this restaurant, 2 people who should never have met were building something extraordinary from violence and kindness and impossible choices. And somewhere in a memory care facility, an old woman slept peacefully, her work complete. If Maya and Elijah's story moved you, don't forget to like this video and share it with someone who believes in the transformative power of love. Their journey isn't over. There's so much more to come. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens next, because in their world, happily ever after is just the beginning of a much more complicated story.